Hey guys, GhazzyTV here with another Path of Exile video talking about gear progression and character progression for the Absolution Necromancer build. Well, guide, I guess. In the descriptions below, you'll find a link to the actual build guide, which houses the focus on the low budget build, PUB for the low budget, but also a PUB for the medium and high budget versions of this character, which I'll be focusing a little bit more on in this video. Before I go on, I do want to say thank you to each and every one of you guys that are clicking the like button and subscribing for more content. It actually helps the channel out a lot. So if you guys watch the video and you find it enjoyable or actually useful, please do me the favor and just hit that subscribe button. It costs you nothing and it helps the channel out a lot. So this character is currently in a what I would call a high budget state. It has a pretty big wand. It has a pretty big helmet at this point, and I'm currently killing most of the endgame bosses before they get to face. However, the way Absolution works is that there's a 25% chance of summoning a Sentinel of Absolution on hitting a rare or unique enemy. This means that you can be unlucky, which I'm sure Kikis will show you here in the footage, where I don't get all three minions out fast enough. And in those situations, bosses will stay alive for longer than they should, and you will have to start doing the mechanics. Now, lucky for Kikis to make fun of me, I died to the balls in the Searing Exarch encounter because I suck at dodging them. Another thing to mention when it comes to dodging those is that those fireballs, specifically in that fight, actually comes up with a situation where they could do collateral splash damage. Basically, if you have minions around you and they hit the minion, they can splash from the minion that's actually triggering the ball to hitting you, even though you might have dodged it perfectly. Which makes that a little bit annoying unless you have like skeletons or something that you can block these balls off with. Outside of that, the DPS of this build is actually pretty insane. I'm currently running 2-man carries for people, killing their endgame bosses for them. But this video, I will be focusing on the progression that we've done from the low budget version that was killing tier 16 bosses and tier 16 maps, as well as the usual regular endgame pinnacle bosses, which that build is dealing with very smoothly. And I'm going to start off by showing you the PUB that is in the game in the build guide for the medium budget approach and talk about the importance of these things. So, this PUB is showing a rather low amount of percent increase HP. This is a rather expensive transition from the low budget to the medium budget version. The first initial upgrade that you want to do is to get a proper helmet. Don't think about Doriani's prototype just yet. You want to have a helmet. This helmet will have I'll show you a search, how you do this search for a helmet that works for the Absolution, which is basically you want a bone helmet with the lightning as extra socket. It's this essence modifier, which is essence of insanity, and then you want to have 2 out of the following modifiers: all minion skill gems at 2 or higher, preferably. You also want to have minion damage, not awakened, minion damage. You can have hypothermia. You can have concentrated effects. You can also have socketed spell, have crit chance. So out of these modifiers, you only need 2 of them together with the essence modifier. This little search will be available in the actual build guide in the description. You'll find it, sorry. And these goes from about 8 divines at the low end, and they go all the way up to, you know, if you want to get the real big ones, then you're gonna have to start pushing out like mirror costs, 115 divines. I don't think this one's worth a mirror, but this one about 115 divines. 66 looks a bit, this one's really good as well. Another 4 modded with a +2 conk effect, spell crit, and the essence, for example. Another one's really good is here as well. It's the same process there. So there's a lot of things you can do when it comes to picking this helmet out. And the reason we're okay with hypothermia is obviously because we're using Arcanist Brand with Vortex. It helps out the cold damage to make sure that we have a chilling effect, and we're using this for the Algor Mortis. So the initial upgrade from low budget to high is to get one of these helmets. Now obviously in this search you could skip the 2 mods and just go with one of those modifiers. Suddenly the price goes down to almost nothing. This would be a nice initial upgrade, which means you don't need to 6-link your Doriani's prototype. So when you start doing this, an easy way to upgrade to the medium life version is to go with the cheaper version of the helmet and then getting a Doriani's prototype that is not needed to be 6-linked. That helps out the currency for the build a lot, but it also means that you have to upgrade the helmet very soon right after. The next initial upgrades from the medium budget is actually to start looking into the Doriani's prototype, which also means you need to start reworking your entire gear set. At this point, the build does so much damage that you could skip the Algor Mortis if that's something you need to help you with attributes or the fire and cold resistance or just more armor and just stats in general or more life, which is actually quite preferable. So you don't need the Algor Mortis at this point. But what is very important is because of the low amount of HP, we need to make sure that every single gear piece that we have has a ton of HP. So if you're going with a negative lightning res with a Laker Kalandra mechanic, you kind of want to make sure that you have really good life rolls on all gear pieces that you can. And this is mostly important when it comes to jewelries. You also want to make sure that you have either a rare shield with life recovery on block or a surrender. Both versions will do. I'm pretty sure the rare ones will be cheaper, which also gives you the access to resistance rolls, which would be really, really nice. The other approach is this jewel. Now, I've only added 2 modifiers to this jewel, which is a 12 passive minion damage cluster jewel that has the 35% increase effect with a high life roll. Now, obviously, you would want something that provides vicious bite and attack and cast speed, something in the lines of this, for example. As you can see, this is pretty expensive, so I didn't want to include this in the medium budget because I think this is too much currency to be in a medium budget build when it's so important. So you can get something that has effect and HP, and the other stats could be literally anything, maybe strength for more life, or if you have damage modifiers, that's great, but these are the 2 modifiers you want to focus on when it comes to the large cluster. You can buy a 12 passive medium damage cluster and just reforge life with Harvest till you get the 35 effect with the life roll, and you're pretty much set. This helps you out with getting a decent amount of HP with the build without screwing yourself over. Item-wise with the progression, you also keep in mind that you need Leaf Shade to stay alive with lightning dots. Very few of them in the game, but this is crucial to help you mitigate that. Item-wise, talked about the Algor Mortis and the Dorianis. The wand should at this point be at least a +2 one, preferably with minion damage or other modifiers such as attack and cast speed. Other than that, it's just going crazy with it. Brittle Boots is nice. Darkness Throne still in play. Changing your jewelries for negative lightning rest. Again, putting a high focus on the life rolls. I made a note about this in the notes section in the actual PUB as well. Bolt of Faith is the last upgrade you want to do in this approach. I'd honestly skip it all the way till I go for high budget personally. Other than that, the Anatomical Knowledge Jewel helps a lot with HP as well. Make sure you get a perfect roll on this one and put it on the left-hand slot. That helps you a lot with HP as well. Other than that, this is the initial steps you want to take to move into the medium budget version of this character. And the high budget, I don't want to talk too much about that because it's going to go in with an Aegis Aurora. It's going to do a ton more damage, and suddenly you're going to play Energy Shield. The Thread of Hope stays the same on the left-hand side. And the initial upgrades to make the high budget version work is obviously a much bigger helmet. So you need to have at least 2 modifiers together with the Essence. You need to have Aegis Aurora. You can skip the Algor Mortis. I actually decided to skip it in my build that I'm playing to get more Energy Shield. And the Meixsell is not required. I don't have it at the moment yet either, but I'm going to get one. And then the tree, it's very, very important on the mirror version of the build that you get these 2 clusters. And as you can see, I'm not level 100, so I don't even have all the points in the clusters, but these clusters are super, super important for both damage output but also defensive stats. So that's basically the gear progression that you want to do when it goes from low into medium and from medium into high budget with this character, which items to prioritize as you go through the list of upgrades. And I would stay life version on the medium budget. Again, you can change the surrender for a rare with life recovery and block. You can skip the Algor Mortis if it helps you get more HP. Well, it's going to help you get more HP, but help you with the resistances and attributes. Make sure your Dorianis prototype doesn't need to be 6th linked at this point. So as you can see here, the precision in this case, you can have a lower level precision if you're having issues with mana, because this type of version, you're still running with an enduring mana flask. And you could change some points to run Eldritch Battery instead with this node if you wish on the life-based version. So that's two things you can change going for this node. And this node, that's 3 points to spend, which will remove the ES buffer from the character in the... sorry, I was on the wrong tree. There we go. I had them spec'd. My bad. I apologize. Too many fucking links. There we go. You have these to sustain the mana, but the high budget version is using an enduring mana flask, which you can see in game for me as well as I'm using to sustain. I don't need this because of the changes in the ascendancies for the high budget, because when I'm clearing, but for single target I have to use them during bosses, which is perfectly fine. And that kind of sums up the entirety of the build. Make sure you cap your minions' resistances. You check that in the calculation. You can go to Absolution. check the minion stats, look on the right-hand side with your character, and just see the stats and the resistances. In this case, they're not capped in this POB. If I import my character, they will be capped, so make sure you do that, because it depends on what kind of gear you're running. If you have minion resist on a bone ring, for example, like this one. And a little other note is that you don't need minus lightning rest on every single piece of your gear. You'll start off with minus 60%. Thread of Hope gives 10 up to 20% negative lightning rest. So that's at the very least minus 70, which means you only need minus 130 lightning rest. You can easily get that on 2 items rather than all 3, allowing you to play around and tweak the last ring to be a bone ring without focusing on negative lightning rest, so you can get damage, reducing cost of things, energy shield, or stats. In my case, I lacked a lot of strength, so I found this ring and went with it. And that kind of sums up the entirety of the progression of Absolution. In the descriptions below, you'll find links to both the play with me leveling through the campaign, as well as a TLDR video. One video is about 5 hours long, where you can play along with me from the start of a league into the end of Act 10. There's a TLDR version, which is about 25 minutes long, going through each act if you need help with the leveling. There's also a progression video in this build, where how you progress from the state of playing in the campaign into low budget to killing tier 16s and endgame bosses. And this video covers the medium budget approach, as well as a little bit of notes about the high budget. Everything will be in detail in the descriptions in the build guide, which is linked in the descriptions below. And if you guys are watching this video further down the road, where this video might be outdated, make sure you always check the written guide, because that will always be updated for every league. Let's not prolong this video anymore. I'll catch you guys in the next one. So till then, as always, stay safe, keep rocking.